What's up, guys? I'm Cooper Abercrombie, owner and operator of Bar-A-BBQ here in Montgomery, Texas. We are a Texas Monthly Top 25 Best New Barbecue Joint. We're also a Top 100 restaurant in the Houston area by the Houston Chronicle. And today, I'm going to show you guys how we make a Texas-style brisket here at Bar-A. It's a good bite, boys. All right, guys, so brisket. When it comes to selecting a brisket, there's a couple key factors you really want to pay attention to. We use an upper 2/3 choice brisket here. We use McLaren Farms. It's one that we can get, in a mass quantity here at the restaurant, but we're going through 130 to like 170 briskets a week. So it's a little bit different than your most backyard. So in saying that, when you're looking for a brisket, you always want to buy the highest quality that you can afford. It's all about that internal marbling and the fat structure within. That, at the end of the day, is what's going to provide that moist factor that you get on the final cut when you're serving someone on the block. All right, guys, so trimming the brisket, we're gonna use a 12-inch slicing knife. This is just a Victorinox. You can get it on Amazon anywhere. It's about 50, 60 bucks. We go through roughly probably about 15, 20 of these a year, but we're using these 6 days a week. We like the slicing knife versus the boning knife. I feel like I get a little bit more even strokes when I'm trimming down the fat and the edges. And it's just a little bit more time efficient for us, and we're doing a lot of them in a day. First cut, we're always gonna cut along that decal, the bottom side of the brisket there. All right, so I am looking to really get this brisket to lay flat when I flip this thing over. And what I mean by flat is that I want the point and the flat of the brisket to be a little bit more like this from the top view when I'm looking over this brisket in the cook. That's gonna help us cook a little bit more evenly throughout the duration of the cook, so we don't have our flat at 180 and our point at 200 later on down the cook. So I'm gonna go ahead, I'm gonna take a majority of this decal out. Now, when I say that, I'm not saying come in here and scoop this thing out. I like to come from the back side and get myself a nice, clean, flat cut. So when I flip this brisket over, it's gonna lay much more flat along this side. It's not gonna be raised up with a big piece of fat sitting under there like that, guys. So get it out to where it's laying nice, flat, and even. And as far as the back side, that's all we worry about. All the silver skin and stuff like that, guys, it's really not gonna make that much of a difference on the back. If you wanna be a perfectionist and clean it up, you certainly can. But I'll be honest, we don't do it here. We don't see a need to it. It's just a waste of time for us. When I've got my bottom side taken care of, my next cut is getting this mohawk trimmed, rounded, and shaped so it's not gonna get burnt up in the pit. Unfortunately, that means taking most of it out. And that cut for me is always the one that kind of opens up the brisket, kind of gives me the shape of kind of what this thing's gonna turn out. So once we have that mohawk out, I'm then gonna come in and I'm gonna start rounding out the rest of this kind of fat within that mohawk component over there, okay? And it's two things, guys. So we're rounding this thing out. We're taking fat out, but we're also rounding out our edges and corners so we get a nice aerodynamic shape. All right, and the last little bit on this section of the brisket is kind of taking out this very end towards the lean. There's a little bit of fat kind of bunched up right here. If you don't scoop this section out, you're gonna have this beautiful cross section of brisket when you go to cut this thing for your friends or family. And there's gonna be this big, this nice render, and then a big glob of fat right there on the end. And that big glob of fat comes from right there on that end of the brisket. So we're gonna go ahead and kind of scoop that out to about 1/4 inch or so. We don't have that issue later on. Now, to me, I have this side of the brisket essentially done as far as the fat and the outer shaping goes. I'm still gonna have to come in and kind of trim some of this flat up, but I'm not there yet. Now on the back end of the brisket, anything that you can grab and it's gonna come out and kind of come to a point, we're gonna go ahead and just take it out, guys. Shape it up. And when you're making those cuts on any of these edges, you're coming up, down, and back under. So you're always moving your blade up and under the brisket when you do it. So I have that back end done. Now I'm gonna start working on my fat coverage and finish up shaping this thing. All right, so when it comes to this band of fat, there's always one general band of fat, and it's always along that opposite end of the mohawk on the brisket. That's where most of your fat's concentrated, so you really don't have to trim a ton of fat down here on this bottom side of the lean. But over here, we're gonna come in and we're gonna come from the top and then just work our way down and around the edges. Kind of doing two things again, guys. We're getting that fat down to 1/4 inch, but we're also helping us shape the brisket up. So it's a little bit more aerodynamic in the cooker as we go. And guys, I know this seems like a lot of trim, but there's a lot of good uses for every bit of this that's coming off this brisket. Sausage, burgers, tallow, stocks. If you're throwing this away, that's on you, man. There's a lot of good stuff you can make with all these components. And guys, there's really not like a perfect way to kind of gauge the fat level. A lot of it is just feel. I'm kind of like, as I'm trimming, I'm using my other hand to kind of feel around the brisket. And if that fat feels kind of hard, then I know there's probably too much fat there on that, in that particular spot. So when it feels nice and soft, or if you start to see a color change beneath the fat, that's a good indicator that you're probably pretty close to about 1/4 inch of fat in that area. Good little pro tip here is you can always kind of feel in between the mohawk and that band of fat, and everything you're feeling in between there, that's where the meat is. So that gives me a good indicator that, okay, I have about this much fat coverage in between those two on this side of that brisket. Now, you don't want to just run your knife at the bottom of that fat, because that means you're going to scalp, you're going to hit that meat, because it's where the meat and the fat is. If you put your knife right in that crevice where the two meet, you're going to scalp all that fat and just expose meat. So you want to bring your knife about 1/4 inch above that, and then work your way where you're trimming down and around it from there. All right, guys, that fat feels pretty solid to me. I think I'm about 1/4 inch everywhere. So this fat is dialed in. Now we're going to get this thing shaped up. Now, shape is 100% a matter of preference. Our rule of thumb is if we think it will hold up in the smoker over the course of 16, 18, 20 hours, we're going to leave it. If we think it's not going to hold up and it's going to get burnt up and dried out or crisp up because it's too thin or whatever, we're going to take it off. Again, what I'm emphasizing is it's a matter of personal preference. Leave as much as you want on, or as much as you want to take off. There's some places that take off almost the entire lean. Their briskets never curl. You ask me all the time about how do you stop the curl? If you want to stop the curl, take the whole damn lean out. It'll never curl again. You'll just get nothing but middle cut slices and then straight into the fatty. There's some places that leave almost everything on and just round out the corners, okay? There's no right or wrong way to do it, guys. It's all a matter of preference and what you want to achieve and what you want to deal with later on the block when you're cutting this thing up for your friends and family. So me personally, I'm going to come in, I'm going to take out just maybe 1 inch or so off there, and I'm going to nip the other corner. And all I'm left with is this one little sharp corner here, and I'm just going to go ahead and kind of nip that out until I get a nice rounded shape. And that right there is a commercially trimmed Bar-A brisket, how we would do it here in the restaurant. And when it comes to seasoning, we keep it nice and simple. We use 16 mesh black pepper. It's the coarse black pepper on the Rio website. They're out of Huntsville, Texas, about half an hour north of us. And then we use their seasoned salt. This part here, it's 100% matter of preference. There's a million different ways you can season it, but most importantly for Texas, it's pepper and salt. Now I'm going to spritz it with just a little bit of water to give us something nice, tacky to hold on to. We always season bottom side or non-presentation side first. So we'll go a nice even layer of our 16 mesh. I like to do about 2 passes normally. Now when you're seasoning, guys, stay nice and high and stay at a consistent rate when you go. If you miss a spot, don't stop and try and go back. Just keep going and then come back and try and go a little bit closer to it and hit that spot right there. If you start and stop and go back and forth, you're gonna get a bunch of blotchy brisket when you're done. Pepper first because it allows the room for the seasoned salt or salt to get in between those bigger granules and still activate and do its job. If you go salt first, there's a chance it's going to stick, adhere, pull moisture out immediately, and not let that pepper ever stick to the brisket. So you end up with some blotchiness on the final product. Again, a little bit of water spritz, give us something kind of tacky and hold on to. We're going to go 16 mesh first. I'm going to go a little bit heavier on the top side than I did the bottom side. So I'll probably do about 3 passes up top. Now, we don't season the sides here at Bar-A. We do season the back side where the burn ends are. But here's our reasoning and thought behind it. So smoke and heat are attracted to wet, rigid surfaces. You get the rigidness from the black pepper and the 16 mesh, You get the wetness from the salt being activated and the natural moisture within the brisket itself. If you are adding excess pepper and salt to the edges, there's a chance you're going to attract excess heat to those points that are normally a little bit thinner. So we want to try and avoid that if we can at all costs. We've gone 16 mesh, and we're going to go back over with our seasoned salt. We're going to go a nice, healthy layer on top. It's a big protein, guys. It can take a lot of salt, especially when we show you later on when we wrap this thing with tallow and we dump it on the brisket. That tallow is going to kind of mellow out some of the salt effect. So don't be afraid to really hit it with the salt. We'll season that back side where the burn ends are. And that's it, guys. I'm going to come in and pat it with my hand. Make sure I'm patting down and not down and over. I don't want to smear it, just straight up and down. And then I like to let these sit out for about 25, 30 minutes before I even think about putting them on. When they get that nice kind of wet, glossy effect from the salt activating, you're good to go to throw this thing on the smoker. All right, so like the late great Colonel Sanders says, in the cool gray light of dawn, we start a brisket cook. Most important part of any brisket cook, guys, is you got to have wood, obviously. We use post oak here at Bar-A, and in Texas, it's kind of a natural, very chill, mellow kind of flavor profile. That's the main reason why we use it. And the other big reason why we use it is that we can get it, and we have it here. So don't go try and order a bunch of post oak if you live in New York or wherever, guys. Like, use what's local to you. That's what makes barbecue so special, is taking Texas style components, but putting your regionality spin on that product. All right, so today we're gonna be using the Backyard Goldie's Pit made by M&M. Why the Backyard Goldie's Pit? Because, well, it's the Goldie's Pit. They're #1, so it'll make the best barbecue ever known to mankind. Not really. We're using the Backyard Pit, guys, and I love the Goldie's guys, by the way. We're using the Backyard Pit, guys, because most of you guys don't have a 1,000-gallon offset sitting in the backyard or a 1,000-gallon rotisserie. It does me no good to teach you how to cook a brisket if I'm not cooking on what you guys are more than likely to be using. Because our brisket cooks are a little bit different for a 1,000 versus a 140-gallon backyard pit. The principles apply the same, but time and temps can differ because there's a lot more space to move air in a big one versus a small one. All right, so if you want to smoke a brisket, you need to start a fire. So let's talk a little bit of fire management. All the haters out there, we're gonna use some match light because I know you guys love this so much. It doesn't take a ton, guys. I'm looking to just put enough in there to get this pit going. I probably got about 2 handfuls in there to start it. The real reason why I use match light is I run a business and I have a lot of stuff to do. I don't have time to sit there with a torch for half an hour. So I can light it, let it do its thing, build the fire, walk away, go do whatever I have to do for half an hour. So post oak, we're gonna build what I call a bundle fire. So essentially a bundle fire, guys, it's just a tight group of logs to where it makes it a little bit harder for the fire and the flames to kind of breathe. So we really want to keep it nice and smoky and really, really chill flames over the first couple hours of the cook. This is going to be where a lot of our color comes from, is these first like 3.5, 4 hours of the cook. I've got 2 logs in there. I'm going to put a 3rd log in there, kind of sandwich it in between those 3. So we're going to run this bundle fire for about 3.5, maybe 4 hours. A lot of it depends on the color we're getting and the bark formation I'm looking at the first couple hours. When it's cold and dry like it is today, that's like the perfect weather for an amazing color and bark formation. So we should get pretty good results today, and I'm pretty excited to move this along. So a couple small details, but they are important for putting the brisket on. However you place that brisket on the pit is how it's gonna cook. So if you put it on there all wonky and jagged, it's gonna cook wonky and jagged. We like to put them on, we push everything in, kind of round everything out we can with our hands to make it nice and round and kind of pebble-like shape on the pit. We're also cooking point to the fire, flat to the stack, and fat side up. We want to use, the natural thermodynamics of the offset, being where the heat's coming from, obviously offset, through the exchange into the cook chamber. At great level, most of that heat is rolling over the top of that brisket. So If you have a direct heat pit, then you would cook fat side down. Put your fat cap towards your heat source. That's really all that matters when it comes to fat side up or fat side down, guys. All right, so our game plan for the backyard Goldie's pit is I want to rock on this pit like 200, 225 and really smoky with that nice tight bundle fire. I'm going to keep my stack shut about 80, 85%. Now, 200, 225 may be way different on your pit, okay, guys? So don't get so caught up in the exact temperatures and times when you're cooking brisket or really any protein, because what I tell you on this pit may not work on your pit. The most important part of this first stage of the cook is I want it to be smoky and lower temps. I'm trying to gradually build up those internal temps on that brisket. I don't want to shock it right off the bat, seize it up, push all the moisture out, and then we get a crumbly, dry brisket on the block. So don't get so much caught up in time and temp. It's more about gradually increasing it with a nice, slow, smoky first part of the cook. All right, so we are about 3.5 hours into this cook now. We've been rocking nice, slow, and smoky. We're about to enter that stall. I want to go ahead and give you guys a quick kind of update and kind of show you what I'm seeing and why I say we're about to hit that stall. All right, so my best indicator that tells me that we're about to kind of enter that stall is we're starting to get that kind of wet effect around our edges of the brisket, and we're starting to get a slightly tighter look. It's starting to come together. So that tells me this thing's probably temping upper 130s, maybe low 140s, maybe as high as the upper 140s, but we're in that range. We're about to hit that stall. We are now going to increase our temps. So we're going to rock between 250, 275 for the next couple hours. And what that's going to do is we're going to see a lot of color change, a lot more bark formation for these next couple hours. This is where you see a lot of transition happen relatively quickly. So when we open this thing up next time, it's going to look a lot darker, and it's going to be just coming out of that stall. As we talked about earlier about the fire management styles, so we're still running kind of a bundle-ish fire kind of setup. It's not really a bundle, but it's kind of a smokier style setup. What I mean by that is I'm keeping my gaps nice and tight between the coal bed and the actual logs burning. So there's not a ton of space for the air to just get ripped through there. You want to see your flames going nice and slow and straight up into the firebox, the top of the firebox. If you see them kind of getting bent in and going into the cook chamber, that's when you start burning up and crisping up your edges, and that's the stuff you don't want to serve. So we are right in the middle of this stall. I know that just because the way it looks. So what tells me we're in the stall? The brisket is shrunken up substantially. It's got a wet, glossy effect all over it from front to back, left to right. That's pushing out the maximum amount of moisture that it has in that protein at this point in time. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna now foil tip our front and our back of the brisket here. We're gonna flip our lean to the fire and our point to the stack, and we're gonna finish the cook that direction, that setup. We're also gonna increase our temps again. We wanna get 275, 300 on the Goldie's pit and really push ourselves out of the stall as quickly as we can without getting too crazy with the fire. So we're gonna flip that, foil tip it, bump temps, shut it back down, and finish it off. All right, so why do we foil tip? We wanna foil tip because at this point, it just kind of helps those little edges on the front and the back kind of stay nice and soft and not get too crispy. We're just gonna put a little bit, kind of a cone on the back of that point. Then we're gonna take that little foil sheet, fold it. I like to fold it again, long ways. And we're just gonna wrap it around the lean side of that brisket and around the tip as well. And that'll help keep all those edges nice and soft. So we're about that hour 11 mark on this brisket cook. We have been running, north of 275, 300 now the last couple hours out of that stall. This brisket, I just took a look at it. It's got that dry effect. That lets me know that we're probably pretty close, if not already done. So I'm gonna open this up and show you guys what we're looking like. This bark is looking great. It's nice and dried out. That's a good indicator. When this gets back to a dry stage after it's been wet in that stall, that should tell you like, hey, it's probably time to start checking and seeing where we're at. Now this fat feels great. You're gonna feel a slight crunch up top. It's gonna feel really pillowy and soft beneath that bark. That tells you that you have rendered the fat and you've done your job. So I'm gonna go ahead and check this thing just to verify. And we're gonna check dead middle, dead center of the brisket. We're looking for like a 194, 195, 196 window, somewhere in there. That tells me this brisket's done. We're gonna slightly under pull it. I know a lot of people think you need to pull it 200, 202, 203. If you pull at that temp, dead middle, it's gonna be way over, way shot, not gonna look great on the board. So we wanna slightly under pull it, wrap it in that foil and let it finish in the foil versus pulling it when it's done, wrapping it, and then it goes way over what we want. All right, so we had this thing pulled off. It was probing about 196, 197, dead center of that brisket. I've got 2 sheets of foil. Why 2 sheets? A, we tend to be a little rough here at Bar-A and we tend to get some holes in the bottom of it if you just do one, and we lose all that tallow we're gonna put in here. So always 2 sheets just kind of helps keep everything in there, and it's just an extra protection. So we're gonna add about 12 ounces of beef tallow to this wrap, roughly. So we took this tallow, guys, from all the brisket trimming that we had. We cooked it down. This tallow is gonna help kind of keep everything rehydrated. The edge is nice and soft. It's also going to help us down the road. When we put this on the block, we can add a little bit of that tallow, give it that nice shiny effect and a little more deeper beef flavor. When we wrap it, we want to wrap it nice and tight around all the edges. We don't want to leave any loose air pockets in there. That'll kind of possibly dry out those edges. So nice and tight. I'm going to let this sit on a cooling rack for probably the next 3-4 hours maybe. That's going to allow the temperature to come down to about 140, maybe 150 degrees. And that's low enough, it's had long enough to rest for me to cut into this brisket and show you all the end results. Now, if you were not to wait and be impatient and cut this thing at 170, 180 when it's still piping hot, you're gonna cut it and you're gonna see juices just running everywhere. Now, TikTok loves that happens, but what TikTokers won't tell you is that's not a good thing to do. If you cut into a steak too hot, a brisket too hot, anything too hot, all of that moisture, all that time you just cooked, you just wasted. You've ran everything out of there. It's gonna shock the meat. It's gonna make it tight again. And you just made it, you've spent all day cooking this product, you've absolutely ruined it because you couldn't wait another 45 minutes. So take the time. It's important to let it properly rest down naturally. Don't try and throw it in the fridge and hurry it. Let it naturally come down, relax, and do its thing. This brisket has rested down to 145 internal temperature, which tells me it's ready to be sliced and served. So we're gonna go ahead and get this thing unwrapped and show you what it looks like. Looking nice, it's feeling nice. We'll get this nice tallow drip on there because tallow makes everything better. All right, so we got this tallow poured on there, guys. Tallow does a couple things. So A, it adds a super nice, deep, beefy flavor to the brisket. It's also gonna give it that nice shine and sheen that everyone loves on Instagram and all the social medias. So let's get this thing cut into. We always start, we separate the lean from the point end of the brisket. So let's get that done. There's 2 things you gotta remember when you cut. So you have 2 muscles going opposite directions overlapping each other. So you're gonna cut the lean one direction and you're gonna rotate and cut the point a different direction. When we cut, we're always gonna cut that decal side of the brisket. There was this nice soft decal we took out to begin the brisket. That's where we're gonna start and get those nice burn ends that everyone wants. Now, so this guy's right here, this is the best slice on the whole brisket. This is my favorite one. It's that burn end slice, then you have this very first slice on the fatty end. And that right there is what you're looking for, guys. You can hold it under its own weight. Now, when I'm evaluating a brisket cook, I like to look at this last little bit on the point end right in here. If it's nice and soft and the fat is rendered, that means I more than likely did a pretty good job running the fire and did my job during the cook. If it's hard and crumbly and really, really dark, That means you ran that fire way too hot. The velocity was too fast. You probably had too big of a coal bed. So always check that little piece right there. All right, guys, so everyone wants a burn end. The burn ends were that first slice on that point end right here. And here's why we don't sell them at Bar-A, because there's really about 4 burn ends on every brisket, and no one would want to pay for how much those cost, for how scarce they are. But since you're cooking this for your friends and family, you'll cut little nuggets right here, and we give these out as you wait in line. The honest truth is, if I give you one of these burn ends and you weren't even here to order brisket, I guarantee you're going to order a quarter or a half pound because you had that burn end. So if you run your own place, there's some free game for you. Salty, smoky, really, really rich from that fat. Let's try that first slice on that fatty. That fat was rendered so well. It's a good bite, boys. All right, guys, and that is how you do a Texas-style brisket the Bar-A way. Thank y'all for watching. Thank you for following along. Leave a comment down below on what you want to see me cook next. Thank you, and God bless.